from their encounters with races from other planets. The information is the activation. Let's awaken this world together. We are the forever students, and we will not be silent. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. Pretty well. Welcome, everyone to Full Spectrum Universe. My name is Rob Yox, and you know what time it is. It's time to dive in. You know why? Because we sit here exploring human potential and humanity's potential by studying the past and remaining within the present. We get to dictate the terms of our future. So if you've been living under a rock, you may not have seen, but over the last week, there was a congressional hearing on u.a.ps. Tonight, we are going to dive into this. Now, there isn't a slideshow with this one. We're going to be having an open conversation. And one of the reasons why I did such is because I want to believe, right? We know that there are extraterrestrials out there. We want to believe. So hearing these bodies in our government say that they exist is not something that we kind of shake a stick at, right? We wait for the information to come out. What do they know that they are either not telling us? What do they know that they've covered up for the last 70 years? There are so many avenues that we look at these specific hearings and say, well, this is a psyop, right? This is another psyop. So the first night after going through this information, watching the hearing, I thought to myself, there's a lot of things said, and thank you, Sugar Bee. Sugar Bee's a member for 9 months, everybody. Love you, Sugar Bee. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We missed you too. It's been a while since I've been on. I've been pushing the show back, pushing it back because of all of the information that's been coming out, right? We've seen declassifications right after the hearing, and I've gone through the whole 177 pages of it, which is going to play a little bit of a factor into what we're talking about tonight. What we're going to do is we're going to break down who was at this function, what was their purpose, what came out afterwards, and what does it all mean. So if you know somebody who's as interested as we are in this specific subject, send them the link. Let's get out there. We're our own best advertisers. Please like, share, subscribe. YouTube does not want me on the air. They are slowly but surely trying to nuke my channel, but I am not going to fall for it. The website will be up soon, and that'll be a one-stop shop for everybody to come through and see where and what we're doing, right? So hold on one second. The camera is moving. There we go. Perfect. All right. So this congressional hearing was done in the full view of the public. So right there, we know that something is off, right? Usually these closed door meetings and the information that was given at this specific hearing didn't. I'm going to make a comparison later, and it's going to be very, very wild when you see the comparison, because this comparison is going to literally blow your mind. I promise you. And we have to look at who these people are that are giving this information as well. A lot of the information that kept saying, well, we have to go to a skiff to give it to you. We can't tell you this. We can only hint at this, hint at that. So they still kept it very vague. But there was one resounding question in my mind the entire time while watching these, or the set of videos, or this entire hearing. Why now? Why now? And diving through the declassified information after the fact, I think I know why. It's not a good look, and a lot of people are going to see what I see when I bring it to light, right? So first, we have 3 people up in front of Congress, and I want to go through who these people are and sort of what they said, first and foremost. Now, we're going to do a little bit of a background. So the first person we heard from was, first one we're going to go over is Ryan Graves. Ryan Graves is an executive director for Americans for Safety and Aerospace, right? Which is wild. We also had David Grosh, of former National Reconnaissance Officer of Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Task Force at the U.S. Department of Defense, and retired Navy Commander David Fravor. And, they're sworn in, which is something that is essentially an act of saying that what I'm saying is true, and any account that I've lied within this hearing can be caught to the penalty of perjury, right? It's what we see Rand Paul talking about right now over the last few years with a certain individual, right? He blatantly lied to Congress and so on and so forth. So when we're looking at this, we're seeing these gentlemen getting sworn in, right? And the title of this hearing is the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena and the Implications on National Security, Public Safety, and Government Transparency, right? Government transparency. Right there are some red flags, right in that title. Implications of national security, public safety, and government transparency. So there's I mean, there's so many red flags here that it's hard to say anything but red flags are literally exist in almost every sentence that's being said. It's crazy. And if you haven't actually seen this, don't worry, we're going to break it down for you. You're not going to have to watch it. I'm going to break down all of the major topics that were brought up so everybody can understand what we're talking about here. And it's crazy. And Rob Weber put this in the chat. It says, "Tell us about the TR-3B, which is the triangular craft that the government has made, which most people miscommonly mistaken for unidentified aerial phenomena or anomalous phenomena." Right. So that's one portion of it, which could be absolutely insane. Or we could say that and this is where we start to go down rabbit holes, right? We can say that this is sort of a re-engineered, or was a specific spacecraft was stripped apart, put back together, and we made something similar to it. We re-engineered the technology, right? So it's crazy because again, it's not a UFO, it's ours. It's ours. So it's not unidentified, it's identified. And Rob is absolutely right. So I'm going to be highlighting comments within the chat all night. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a great conversation here, right? So again, please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment when we finish. So let's get into who the people are themselves. Let's talk about Ryan Graves. Ryan Graves is the executive director for American Aerospace Safety. He is a former F-18 pilot with ties to Central Massachusetts. And Wednesday in the subcommittee, he said quite a few things, right? He's also a former lieutenant in the U.S. Navy, originally from Baldwinville, and he graduated from the Narragansett Regional High School in 2004 and earned a bachelor's degree in mechanical and aerospace engineering from Worcester Polytechnic Institute in 2008. But in 2014, Graves said that he witnessed what he refers to as a UAP, or unidentified aerial phenomena, while he was stationed at a naval base in Oceana, Virginia, or Virginia Beach, right? So, according to Graves, upgrades to jet radar systems led to unknown objects being detected within this aerospace and later tested visual identifications that correlated with the presence of UAPs while it was all a part of it, right? So these encounters became more frequent, that the air crew would discuss the risk of a UAP as part of their regular pre-flight briefings. Sorry. So during a training mission, this is what Graves said, two F-18s were split by a UAP that was described as a dark gray or black cube inside of a clear sphere. While the squadron submitted a safety report, Graves said that there was no official acknowledgement of the incident. So, right here, we have something that has happened, and I can understand why they didn't report this incident. A lot of these pilots are afraid that if they report certain instances where they've come in contact with some unidentified aerial phenomena, that they will be seen under a certain light as crazy or not able to acquiesce to the rigors of the job. So it's very difficult for them to come forward with these things. But these gentlemen seem to be taking a chance as per what we know. Now, one thing I always state when we talk about government officials, once you're paid by the government, you are always a government agent. You are always being paid by the government. So keep that in mind when we go through this. And when I get to Schellenberger's declassifications that happened within this week, we look at the esoteric meanings and the symbolism that some of these encounters in the Schellenberger declassification of 177 pages of unidentified aerial phenomena contact. We read page one and we read the last page. And then you see a pattern. And that pattern has a greater implication. Now, when I get to the greater implication, things could get a little hairy. They may cut me off. But tonight we're going to take a risk. We're going to take a risk and we're going to put this information out there because and only because it is pertinent that we understand the mechanics of how these people are creating a plan, right? They're utilizing strategic areas where this plan can be implemented. So let's keep going. So UAP our UAPs are in our airspace, but they are grossly underreported. This is what Graves is saying again. These sightings are not rare or isolated, they are routine. Military aircrew and commercial pilots, trained observers whose lives depend on accurate identification, are frequently witnessing this phenomena. And again, Graves said a stigma exists around this discussion, and silencing these pilots out of fear for repercussion. So recent government statements casting doubts on eyewitness testimony have contributed to that stigma as well. Graves said that all the UAP videos are classified or secret and above, which impedes public understanding and fuels distrust. So the next person we're going to be talking about is retired Commander David Fravor. He's a former commanding officer of the Black Aces Squadron, and he's a part of the U.S. Navy. Now, this specific one, I have a tremendously long um, speech for what he said, but basically, he said about his name. He said in 2004, I was commanding officer of a strike fighter squadron 41, the world famous Black Aces. We were attached to a carrier Air Wing 11 and stationed on board the USS Nimitz, which is CVN 68. We were at the beginning of our workup cycle that would prepare us for a combat deployment to the Persian Gulf for operations supporting the ground forces in Iraq. The at sea period was the schedule to go from early November to late December. During this period, we would train with these other units in the battle group while integrating and honing our skills that we will rely on during our deployment. So he had been at sea for roughly 2 weeks and was scheduled for a 2v2 air to air training exercise. And essentially, it was the good guys and bad guys, right? And they were being controlled. There was a different ship off that was the other team, which was the USS Princeton. And there's two F-18 aircrafts with a pilot in the front and the WSO weapon systems officer within the back seat. So the red air, which is there's the blue air and the red air, which is the good and the bad. The other side was flown by Marines. And as they launched off the USS Nimitz, they checked with their air controller on the USS Princeton, where they were told the training was going to be suspended for real world tasking. And his wingman joined up and it would basically proceeded towards the contact to the west of the combat air patrol point. And they were pretty much saying, like, what's going on here? Right. And they proceed to say that they, at a 20,000-foot location, they essentially saw a blip on the radar. and the radar resolution cell had contact with them as well. And they were essentially going back and forth, and they saw the tic tac shaped object. And this is what made them abruptly kind of call back to the radio and say, "What, do you see this?" They confirmed, and the flight control was sort of not knowing where to go with the story, right? They were like, we don't know what to tell you right now." But this thing skimmed over the water and it was fast as anything. And it hit a 90-degree angle, which they thought was something relatively crazy at the time. So this is where his story goes. And he mentions about years later in 2009, he had some with Lou Alzondo. He was contacted, and essentially so on and so forth. You ask, why is that even, why is that even present in what we're talking about? And it's very, very real why we say these things, right? So he was also joined forces with Tom DeLonge, Chris Malone, Steve Justice, the Star Academy, Stars Academy and stuff like that. And he's had some pretty crazy contacts that we can get into a little bit further later on. But I'm saying this to say that look at the company that these people keep. There is a lot of misinformation around the watering hole. Now, I'm not going to call anybody out specifically by name, but within the UFO community, we know who they are and we know what their agenda is. And again, once a government agent, always a government agent, right? So there is a active work in them to essentially disseminate information that is not their own. And they work at it and they do this a lot. Oh, I see Omar made it. Omar, my beautiful brother, congratulations on your wedding. I watched the ceremony that you had on your phone. I wish you guys nothing but the most happiness in the world. I love you both, and I'm so happy for you that you've made it official and made your lady, Mrs. Omar. So awesome, right? So anyway, so let's get back to the task at hand. So they keep going. We have a third person that we can talk about who is David Grosh. We know that this gentleman has been called into question already with his accolades, aka his viability of story and what we're seeing being churned out in the mainstream. Now, I'm going to make a comparison right now because of what they said during this hearing. I want to ask a question first. How many people within this chat has either looked at pieces of a book or written the book Behold a Pale Horse by Milton William Cooper? How many people? Right? And you're going to ask, why is this relevant? And I'm going to get to it. There is this story that they are portraying throughout this entire hearing. And this entire hearing sounds as if it lines up almost identically with Behold a Pale Horse and the appendix of this book, which is the Appendix B. And it talks about some UFOs, Area 51. Now, listen to what I'm going to say to you. I'm going to read a little bit excerpt from this book. And I want you to tell me if this sounds like what they were saying in front of Congress, right? I need to make it bigger because the copy I have is not the greatest, but it appears that security was very good. And no one had any idea that an aircraft had crashed there. I suspect that the aircraft was 50 feet in diameter and as long as 200 feet. I could be wrong in the length, and I recall that portions of the craft were flat on the ground. Within that craft, there is a pilot, right? And this pilot was retrieved and taken into the truck. So there is so much similarity here between what they were talking about when they kept saying, oh, it's biologics. It's biologics. We have biologics. Now, this could be a play on words, right? Because just to say that you had non-human biologics doesn't mean that they had extraterrestrial biologics. Now, it's it's crazy. It's crazy to sit here and think that if these people went in front of Congress, they would use William Cooper's book to justify their position, which it sounds like they did. And I wonder if and when they got to that skiff, when these congressional members were asking for more information, if they brought pieces of this book printed out to give to them. Now, the crazy part about Behold a Pale Horse is that William Cooper himself has come out to say that some of the extraterrestrial information within this book is exaggerated because of the sources that he cited in some of his book to later be found that they were a bit exaggerated. You know, it's incredible. So, what is the purpose of this hearing if they're doing this? Why now? Why now? What's the motive? Well, after this congressional hearing, which is the part that I wanted to get to more so than anything else, was it's called the Schellenberger document 2023. There was a declassification of about, I don't know exactly how many there are, but it's 177 pages of extraterrestrial contact summarized all the way up. It starts at 1947 and goes all the way to 2023, right? So in between are the major reported aircrafts and how some people have disappeared. Now, I didn't read through all 177 pages. I looked for something that would stick out to me. Now, eventually, I ended up reading all 177 pages because it was a long time before anything really stuck out to me. But something had stuck out in such a way that it cannot be ignored. Now, everybody here is familiar with the exactly, Omar, with the Agenda 2030, correct? If you're not, put something in the chat. I will describe it. I will give you an idea of what it is. So, I mean, I'm trying not to go into too much detail here, but here's my thought. So, what I did is I pulled the first page of this document, of these documents, and the last page. Now, the first page is the beginning, right? And the last page, of course, is the most recent. So, where is the commonality with these two pages? Now, when we look at esoterics, usually between the first and last page, there's a symbolism between those two pages where they correlate. There's either a correlation or a subtext that may not be mentioned right off the bat, but you can see it if studied well enough. So, we know a lot of things are swirling around this hearing, right? And a lot of things are swirling around what we know as Project Bluebeam, Agenda 2030, um, the New World Order, the elites, the power grabs. So what does that all have to do with this hearing, right? So they're setting a precedent for everybody. There's two objectives with this hearing. First is to make the government look foolish, absolutely foolish. Why would we want to make our own government look foolish? Because we want people to distrust the government. Now, a lot of us do, but not for the reasons that they give us, for the reasons that we see in plain day, that where the distortion of logic and comprehension of what regular things for our entire lives were are now being turned on their head, right? And the support of wild ideologies. But they want you to believe that the government has lied to you in every area now, which is what we already believe. So it's kind of like a similar narrative. because they want to destroy the government. They want you to know that the government has been hiding this from you for 70 odd 80 years. So why is this important? So we know that they're going to make a move for this power grab, right? This power grab has to come on the heels of something tremendous, whether it be destruction, economic crash. This is the linchpin event. Right now, it's been small steps, but this is the linchpin event. And Project Bluebeam is what they're talking about. Now, there is an encounter from a specific gentleman on the last page of this Schellenberger document. And it's the retired CIA official, John Ramirez, states several new pieces of information in an interview, including that he was told of a compartmented area of the Navy as sensitive as the Manhattan Project, and that may be u.a.p related. He heard rumors of a relationship between the ONR, the CIA, and this is where the u.s.o materials were recovered and transferred to the CIA, and that the NGA. And this is where most of the u.a.p evidence in the form of videos is put. Ramirez also states dialogue inside the USG from official channels, and he heard states u.a.p occupants and factions will arrive in 2027, and we need to be prepared. Why 2027? Think about it. Why 2027? Now think of Agenda 2030, and think about some of the things that they're going to have to do to implement 2030. First thing that's going to happen is they're going to have to alleviate specific inherent freedoms, especially in America, like the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, the freedom of press, the freedom of assembly. And what better way to do that than under the guise of a world implicating threat, right? So Project Bluebeam is used to create destruction on a level that we've never seen. And once they do that, which will be in 2027, Project Bluebeam will be what is the supposed direct cause. And when they implement this, they're going to slowly but surely pick away at the freedoms that are inherent in this country to assimilate us into the one world religion, one world order, governmental oligarchical regime, authoritarian regime. So 3 years before 2030, they're going to use this implementation of this project program to essentially make mankind capitulate to their needs. And before that even happens, the economies are going to be wrecked up, which they're also going to imply on, they're going to use other methods for that, but that's going to be more of the lockdown various areas again, right? Locking sectors down so that they can't be implemented properly. And again, with the CBDC rollout, that's going to be another something that's happening. That's going to see they're coming from all sides. And I ask my question again: why now? Why now? And this is an inherent question we're going to ask throughout the entire episode tonight. Why now? Because the short answer is they're moving in a direction where these elites have been planning this for the last 60 years. Right? This is an implementation process. What they do is they war game something, which is usually the plan B, and then they unveil plan A, the more serious of the two. And I think it's funny that a gentleman from the CIA is the one saying that the 2027 is going to be where we meet these aliens. They're going to land on Main Street. Are they going to land on Main Street or are they going to blow Main Street up? Now, again, the hearing is national security implications and public safety. So you see why they're starting to desensitize people to this. But the crazy part is the reaction that most people had, which they actually didn't expect, which is somewhat of a saving grace. And I made a post about it on YouTube, or actually I think on almost every social media I have, earlier this week, right after. They came out with this information and basically admitted to us that extraterrestrials, extra dimensional beings are real. And everybody goes, so what? I can't put food on the table. My rent just skyrocketed. So what? So what? And they thought that they were going to basically take the news of that week and have it broken down because of this hearing, which is almost why they allowed it to happen. But they also allowed it to happen because they want you, the people, to know that these beings are here. And I bet you right after this, right? They're going to say that they've been here the whole time. That is the next announcement. Because we've already gotten to the point where they're here now and they're coming. The next is going to be they have been here the whole time. Now think about what that does, right? That is the same connotation of what they would have said 10 years ago if they would have admitted that there was aliens to begin with. There would have been panic. But now people are like, yeah, okay, so what? Doesn't really bother me right now. Not a big deal. But again, if they say that they've been here the whole time, people, especially the people who have been MK Ultra radicalized, are going to do inherent acts of violence, which are ridiculous in the name of culling these aliens from our planet. This is what they want. Again, they create these narratives. And on the back end of those narratives, there's destruction, mayhem, and chaos. And from that chaos, they want to be the saviors. They want to be the ones who save humanity. But the only way to save humanity is to get that little chip in your hand, to be a part of the CBD system, to go ahead and join on the side of this one world united peoples, of this one world religion, of this one world economic system, of this one world government. We've been screaming this at the top of our lungs for the last 20 years. And it's crazy because we are an embattled broadcast on the essence of humanity and on the heels of these nefarious people. We, us, this community, watchers talk, the people that we engage with, we are the pushback. We are the ones that we've been waiting for and that they hoped would never come. But we're here. We're going through this information, right? And we're setting up our ability to combat this information with new information. And Pamela is absolutely right. It will be fomented. It still is fomented. It's being budgeted under the Black Projects programs right now. Right? And here's the crazy part, right? Let's really think about this in a very simplistic way. If these entities wanted to wipe us off the face of the earth, they could have. These entities could have destroyed this planet long ago if they truly wanted that. But it's not them who we're up against. It's humans. It's humans who believe that they are higher than God Himself. They're humans who believe that they are the epitome of humanity and they get to dictate the terms of who's going to live how and who's going to live where and who's going to live why. But what they don't understand is that their number is up. We've done enough of the work to empower ourselves to a place where they'll never engage in that ever, because it'll never get that far. And when these hearings in the Congress come up and we shake our head at it because we know what you're doing, we know what they're doing, and it's not going to work. The veils have been lifted. It's over for them. They can't deceive humanity the same way that they did before, because there's people like us on the bleachers screaming, screaming, right? And there's a lot that we're doing right now to awaken people. I had two interactions today. Today was a crazy day for me. I saw two people from high school that I have not seen in 15 years. And I also saw a woman who worked in the same school system that I went to. So she was a teacher. And I bombarded all three of them with this information to see their reaction. And I'll tell you what, if this would have been 6 years ago, they would have called me crazy and would have laughed at me and would have walked away. All three of them said something along the lines of, "Do you really trust what's happening? Because I don't." And these are just, I don't know how deep these people are into what we do, but these are, I would see as everyday people. And because I had a connection through high school, I was able to talk to them for a minute and see where they're at. And humanity is here. We're here. We're present. And we're ready to dictate these terms of what's the future is going to look like. So it's crazy. I don't want to harp on this too much longer. I think we're not going to do the entire hour tonight, but I thought this was absolutely incredible. The connections that we could make to beyond, beyond a pale horse. If you haven't read it, I suggest you read it. It is a good book, even though some of it is embellished, you know, and how vague they were, right? Which is another point of the matter, which we talk about, is soft disclosure, right? Soft disclosure is just to wet the whistle. And there's other people out there too who are trying to garner profit, fame, and monies or recognition off these events over the last few weeks in Washington. And I'm not afraid to call these people out, but I saw a TikTok yesterday, and yes, I indulge in TikTok once in a while. I know it's terrible, but I saw somebody who calls himself a doctor get up there and say, "Oh, well, I had helped a lot of the congressional committee people write their questions because, God forbid, a congressional meeting goes off about UAPs and this person wasn't involved, right? This person didn't garner any type of recognition off of it." And we all know who this person is. It's crazy. It's crazy how so many of these people who we know are assets of the government and are being paid by the government have tried every which way to involve themselves in these committee hearings. Now, this gentleman also came out before David Grosh went in and said, "Oh, well, I coached him on how to bring this to Congress." And David Grosh was like, "No, he didn't." They have their hands all over it. And what they think they're doing is they think that they're lending a bit of credibility to the situation by bringing themselves along in it, when really they've done the opposite, because we see through those veils too. It's wild. It's wild to see these people do this and how they're suckers for attention, and they want to be the one so bad that unveils this information. If it was up to me, I wouldn't care if it was my info, the next guy's info. I just want it out. I'll be damned if it's going to be on my time, right? Like, I don't care. It could be my info. I'll give it to somebody else. Put that out there. If you have the means to get this out there publicly, do it. Do it now for the betterment of everybody. But it's not about the betterment of everybody when it comes to some people. It's about their personal ability to garner something from it or to gain more recognition in the conversation. right? Which is one of the reasons why myself, and I know Omar, I'm not going to speak for him, but the recognition means nothing to us. The information means everything. We don't care. We could be 5 people watching this right now. I ask you to share it out because I want to wake up the world. But there could be 5 people watching right now. It could be one person, could be nobody, could be a half of you somewhere down the line. It's not important. What's important is that I get to connect with everybody here or the people who will watch later. And hopefully they take something from what we've said. Not that we're even 100% right. This is our perspective on display. So again, it's up to the eye of the beholder to feel what vibes with them and to take what they need if they need it at all. So again, there are assets out there in plain sight trying to tell you that they are the utmost forebearer of this information of certain sections that have to do with ufology, conspiracy, and spirituality. And I'm here to tell you that no person will ever be an authority over you. You are your own authority over you. And there's nothing I can say or do that will ever change that, nor would I ever want to. Sovereignty is everything. That comes with discernment and recollection and information seen through the eyes of the beholder. And I think that we've gotten so far from that in some of these circles that it's all what have you done for me lately type stuff. And it's disheartening in some places because some of these people have such big followings, but at the same time, they're not utilizing them to action. They're utilizing them for the spotlight. This is an action broadcast. We're giving you information to distribute to whoever you believe will be able to digest it. And that's why we're also doing the fundamentals of who we are. Because to understand some of those interpretations of what's happening around us is to give you a greater insight into the reality which we interact with every day. That's why we're doing it, right? And I know it can get annoying too because we go to like the really deep stuff, but then we come back to the more simple stuff, and it's all a refresher, right? This is why we do this, and I'm sort of rambling now because I believe that another thing that I've stayed away from was having more guests on, and I'm changing that. I'm going to bring more speakers on to get different perspectives because not only is their perspective important? It's good to get these perspectives on different ideas so that we can formulate more of ourselves, right? And it's wild. That's a great statement, Omar. That's a great statement. You know, the ego is so driven that you become what you fight. Hopefully, that does not, well, I'm not going to say hopefully, that's not going to happen to us. We're not those people, right? Our lives are not contingent on these broadcasts, but there is a great pleasure that comes with them and being able to disseminate information. But our livelihoods are not embed they're a portion of what we do, right? For myself, it's a portion of my livelihood, but not to the point where if something is to happen, that I'll be homeless, right? And that there is a freedom being able to go through this information and see who these players are and seeing this plan and formulation. So, Rita, good to see you. Good to see you. It's been a while. I got to have you back on the show. We need some of your light to shine over the community again. So, you know, this hearing is a setup. It's an implementation of a plan to be enacted later on. And what they're doing is they're getting you used to seeing it, used to hearing it. And that is going to be the way that they infiltrate certain people's psyches and consciousness because so many people, like myself, want to believe, right? We know it exists. So when we hear people say it, we gravitate towards what they're saying, which is one of the reasons why they thought they were going to catch the ufology spiritual community off guard with these. And we were going to fall for it hook, line, and sinker. But we're not. But we're not. Right? So, with all that being said, like, share, subscribe. Please, please, please leave a comment when this is finished. Omar, Sugar Bee, Ricky, Caroline, Soul Rita, Liquid, I love you all so much. And Pamela, if I'm forgetting anybody, Beatrice, everybody, Nicole, Harmony, Rob Weber, the Andromedan, Anu, Conrad, Kelly, Alexandra, Ainsmoth. I love you all. And I hope everybody has gotten something from this video. And if you did, you know, oh, Sugar Bee got a strike? No good. No good, Sugar Bee. No good. So I love you all. Please help us spread this message. It's our inherent duty because we are the ones that we've been waiting for. If not us, then who? And this information can be the activation. So, with all that being said, this is Full Spectrum Universe. My name is Rob Yox, and we'll see you all very, very soon. Have a great night.